What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone is doing well. Today's video is definitely going to be longer, so I'm going to try to break it up. But if I do a reel and it like cuts off like in the middle of something, I'm going to try not to do that. But if it does, you know why. If you really want to see the entire video, you can do one of two things. You could join my Patreon. I'll put the stuff right there, or you could watch it on YouTube in about a week or so. But I am going to be putting the full video on Patreon first. Anyway, that being said, today's video is going to be based on things that I drew from my last few videos. I'm going to be breaking down a bunch of comments, and the reason that I'm doing that is because I constantly get people in my comment section when I'm having an interaction with somebody, especially someone who is a racist and I've called it out. People tend to ask me all the time in a really accusatory manner, well, how are you going to call them racist? You don't even know them. Or what did they say that was racist? So the purpose of this video is for me to explain to you, number one, that all racism is not overt, right? What that means is that you don't have to say the N-word to be racist, right? There are ways and actions, there are microaggressions that people do on a regular basis that already signal to me, because I've been doing this for a minute, that they have racist tendencies. And what ends up happening a lot is I'm able to draw them out. And it amazes me, and I understand that people don't, do research and they get caught up in moments and stuff like that, but it really amazes me that there are so many people who will see a comment, see a black man saying that comment is racist, and before they take the time to analyze the comment or maybe go through the chat and see what's going on, the first thing that they want to do is defend that statement and say or claim that it is not racist. The problem that I have with that is that when I show and prove that the comment was racist, or that commenter actually lets the cat out of the bag and does something overtly racist or says something overtly racist, those people that were questioning me, they just disappear. Now, I could easily just let that go and keep it moving, but I feel that it's important, A, to expose that kind of behavior, because that is a form of education, right? And it's important to call it out. Every time I see it, I'm going to call it out. If you come onto my page, or anybody's page for that matter, and the first thing that you want to do is tell somebody that what they're talking about is wrong, you should actually know what you're talking about. And if you don't, especially on this page, it's very possible that you could become the subject of either an entire video or part of one of my segments. So that being said, let's get into some stuff. Now, just to recap, I did a video a couple weeks ago, and what I was speaking on was the framing of proximity violence. The point of the video was that violence happens in every community, and yet when it happens in the black communities, it is referred to as black on black violence, as opposed to proximity violence or just violence in general. I ended up making reference to the Italian gangs. I made a reference about MS-13, and I also made a reference to Hell's Angels. And one of the very first comments that I got that gave me that kind of ill feeling in my stomach, as far as oh, this is about to be something, was this comment right here. Now, I ended up doing an entire video, not an entire video, it was only a reel, so about 1 minute and 30 seconds, but I did a video and I kind of broke down the comment, right? And by the time I had done that video, I already knew that this guy was totally 100% racist, but there were still people that were going to defend him. That is when I had this guy come in and ask the question that I was talking about earlier. What is racist about what he said? Well, the first thing that I want to discuss is if you're coming onto a black man's page who's talking about race or anything else, and the first thing that you want to do is bring up another race, especially a race that is very that has a very close proximity to white, right? Because there's an argument that Italians are not white, whatever. But because of the proximity to white, you felt the urge to not only defend your history, because this guy was Italian, right? So you don't want your people to look like shit, but in order to do that, you have to make black people look like absolute shit. And I knew that from that very first comment. The guy that commented second, asking me what was so bad about it, he knew as well. But I digress. Like I said, I've been doing this for a very long time, so there's certain things that just jump off of the page or jump out of the phone to me when I'm reading a comment, and I can tell, I can sense the racism. And I'm not gonna lie, there have been a couple times. It has not happened often, I promise. It hasn't happened since I got back on Instagram, but there have been times where I thought that somebody was being racist and they weren't. We ended up having a dialogue because even though I'm an asshole, I'm not a complete asshole. I'm only asshole to racists, right? So once it was established that this person really did have a different intention, we were able to have a conversation with each other, and we did all of that publicly, right? So every time that I say it doesn't mean that I'm right, but 99% of the time I am correct. And if I'm not correct, I don't have a problem apologizing publicly. I'm not the dude that's gonna take comments down or do anything crazy. I don't block people. I don't do any of that. I want everything to be as transparent as possible. I believe that on social media, a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people, they put up a front. They want everything to be perfect. Me, I'm not like that. I understand that life is not perfect, and while I care about what it is that I'm doing, I don't give a fuck about this internet shit. You understand me? So when I'm giving it to you, I'm most likely giving it to you raw, because that is the way that I feel it will be the most impactful. Now, going into the exchange with the first guy, you can see through his comments, and pause if you need to read them, but you can see in his comments where he is going. It is very, very easy to see that. And the fact that there were still white people jumping in the dead middle of his tirades rather, because they saw what he was saying and saw another white person being accused of racism, they had to jump in. Now, I want to talk about that. I believe that the reason that happens as often as it does is because when these white people look into the mirror, they understand that they bear resemblance to the people that I'm referring to when I'm talking about racism, right? And usually I'm talking about either systemic racism, or I'm talking about slavery, or something along those lines. Usually it has to do with systemic racism, but I'll mention white people and their role in it. And because these people see that proximity to that whiteness, right, or to that racism, or because they know that maybe somebody in their family has that kind of tendency, they feel the need to defend it. The first thing and the most common thing that I see is people asking me why I think something is racist. And then when I break it down, the most common response is, well, that's not necessarily racist, or that's just their opinion. Well, it is racist, and that means that their opinion is racist, which means that they are racist. And furthermore, that makes you racist by proximity. And I'm not saying that you are a racist, right? Because I believe that in some degree, there are degrees of racism, right? So you might not be, no matter how hard I push you, you might not be the person that'll say the N-word, but the person that you're defending did or will. And because you are lining yourself up with that, you're in the same boat. That is how it works. Guilt by association. I know that a lot of you have heard of that term before, right? So bear in mind that when you do that, and I'm talking to white people, When you do that, even if you do it as you're trolling, recognize that that is a racist tendency. The policing of black speech, the policing of black emotion, trying to downplay lived experiences or the trauma of black people, of people of color, because it makes you feel uncomfortable, is exactly why I do what I do. I don't give a shit about how it makes you feel. I don't give a shit that your uncle or your grandma or your grandpa might be seen in some of these pictures or old videos of racist shit going on in America. I don't care that it makes you feel uncomfortable. It makes me feel uncomfortable. What makes me feel more uncomfortable is that there are people like these guys who will run around and fake it like they're not racist when deep down inside they actually are. Another thing that is kind of funny to me, it's sad but it's predictable, that's why it's funny, is as soon as I start to go in on these people, one of the first things that they want to accuse me of is being racist. Just because I'm calling out racism or I'm acknowledging that you are indeed racist does not make me racist. That just makes me honest, bro. Another thing that is an absolute racist tendency is coming on to a post that's talking about racism or slavery or anything that is connected to trauma of Black and POC people, right? Anytime you feel compelled and actually carry out the act of commenting on a random person's post, right, that not all white people are the people that they're talking about, that is your racism showing through. How? Well, like I said earlier, what you're doing is trying to separate yourself from racism. And if you can separate yourself from racism, that makes it a little bit easier for you to deny the existence of that racism. And if you can deny in any way the existence of the racism, well, then you can then look at me like I'm over exaggerating. And that's when we get the comments about me race baiting or bringing up old stuff for what. And my point is that those historical facts, especially those dealing with slavery and red line and black laws and Jim Crow laws and prison, school to prison pipeline and all of that kind of shit, food deserts, all of that is actually connected. And no matter what you call me as far as a race baiter or a racist or whatever, that does not negate the fact that what you're trying to do is put a veil over your face so that you can't see it. And as long as you can't see it, you can deny that it happens. And you can try to reverse the role and make me the racist, which I don't care because I'm spitting facts and facts over feelings every time. So in the one exchange that I had with this dude, right, and I'm gonna be putting the comments down there so that you guys can read them. Feel free to pause if you need to see it. The first thing that I want to point out is the fact that coming into the comment section without doing any type of due diligence and making a comment accusing anybody of anything, that is a prime example of you just using your white privilege, right? Anybody else is gonna check what's going on before they offer an opinion because nobody wants to be loud and wrong. But because you are white, especially a white man, you felt you could say whatever you want to say. Then when it comes to the point and I show and prove that the person that I'm talking to before you is indeed racist, like I did here, as opposed to being a grown-up and saying, you know what, my bad, he's a dick, I was just, I don't even, you right, my bad. As opposed to doing that, you continue the exchange but absolutely positively gloss over it and then start to accuse me of being racist or race baiting because I'm calling you out for your racism. That is not how it works. It's not a game of tag. You're it, you're it, you're it, you're it, you're it. No, not at all. That's not how it works. Your whiteness made you, compelled you to come and try to correct a black man. And when you found out that you were wrong, you tried to attack the black man in another manner, as opposed to apologizing, not for the racist statement of the other person, but simply to acknowledge that A, I'm not fucking crazy, I'm not making shit up, I'm not race baiting, and more importantly, to semi-acknowledge your fucking privilege. Then there's comments like these. I blurred this out, I blurred the username out because I don't want this person, I hope that they are watching and I hope that they know who they are, remember what they commented. I don't want to seem like I'm trying to put you under the microscope or anything like that, but I do hope that this will at least prompt some reflection on your part. Thing number one, you don't follow me, or you weren't following me at the time, right? So for you to come into the comment section and the first thing that you say is you don't know who it is that I'm talking to, well, obviously you weren't paying attention, and to tell you the truth, you don't really care. Also, just to be perfectly honest with you, that is another example of you using and exhibiting your white privilege, and also trying to pull that veil and create some kind of distance or separation. You felt that it was necessary for you to comment, as opposed to saying fuck racism or something like that. You decided to comment about yourself, making my post or my response to racism about you and how you've had to deal with it being a non-black person. That is very important, and I sincerely hope that you reflect on this and don't take this as an attack, but use it as a point of introspection so that you can kind of figure out really where you are on that spectrum and do some work. This went on way longer than I wanted, and I'd already anticipated for it to be a long video, so I'm going to try to wrap it up here. The one thing that I want to say is, and I've said it before, I am definitely not racist. I do not fucking hate white people, nor do I hold white people of today responsible for the actions of white people decades ago or even hundreds of years ago. However, that being said, just because I don't hate you does not mean that I am putting myself in a position where I need to be considerate of your feelings as far as what I post. History is history. So if it makes you uncomfortable to hear about racism, scroll past. If it makes you uncomfortable to hear about slavery or plantations or breeding plantations or redlining or food deserts or Jim Crow or the school of prison pipeline or any of those things, then scroll past. This is not the page for you. But if you want to gain some type of understanding, right, or at least get some points that you can investigate on your own and maybe come back to the comment section and get into a debate with me and prove me wrong, that's what I'm here for. But I'm not going to censor or sugarcoat or whitewash my messaging because it makes you feel uncomfortable. Racism makes everybody uncomfortable except racists. That's just a part of life. That being said, I hope this was informative. I'm going to be doing more work like this. I'm also going to be going back to dealing with the psychology that takes place in the hood and our mental health issues and things that we don't deal with or don't really talk about very often in the hood. I'm also going to be doing more educational videos on the things that I actually just mentioned, breeding plantations, civil rights movement, you know, all that kind of stuff. All of the stuff that the schools in Florida don't want us to know is the stuff that I'm going to be covering in addition to that. So with that said, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, follow, and if you are so inclined and you want to support, join the Patreon. Until next time, peace out.